Hey everyone, and welcome to the AI Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Joseph, and today we're very lucky to have data manager Jon Leslie on the podcast. How's it going today, John?
Going very well. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. It's so lovely to have you here. Yeah, well, let's jump straight into it. You're a member of the Rebel AI community, John. You're working in data. What is your technology origin story?
Yeah, it's sort of long and convoluted, I guess, is the short
Let me.
answer.
Fantastic. Tell us everything.
I had my originally I was doing science in biology. I did
Right.
basically biomedical research for about 20,
Mm.
25 years.
Oh wow.
That was in the States.
Mm.
I moved through a few universities there, and then I came to the UK about 22 years ago to do a PhD.
Oh
So
yeah.
first I was working in labs, and then I did a PhD, and I ended up working in cancer research.
Wow.
I did that for a few postdocs, and then I decided to switch fields and get out of basic research
Hmm.
and move into something different. And that was about 10 years ago. Data
Hmm.
science was getting a lot of press at the time, so I thought, okay,
Right.
I'll give that a try, and
Uh-huh.
left the lab. Took a year to sort of train online, and
Right.
I had a young child at the time, so I also spent some time being a dad,
Sure.
um, or a more full-time dad, let's put it that way.
Hmm.
And then I started trying to get a data science job. It ended up being difficult because I
Oh yeah.
didn't have any business experience. I think I've heard one of your other guests say sort of say similar things. Maybe Ryan was saying that about
Yeah.
his path,
Mm.
and I think a lot of us coming out of academia go through that. That okay,
Right.
I would go to interviews, and the interviewer would say, okay, you seem nice, you seem smart,
Right.
but Skippy over here is also nice and smart, but he's worked in a company before, so we're going to go
Yeah.
Skippy, and it's hard to argue with that. Um,
Sure.
so I had this dream. Okay, I'll work for a while. I'll come in as an entry level data scientist. Get to a point where I can start building up my own business and do freelancing, and then maybe live the dream of doing data science from a beach in Thailand or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, And so I sort of thought, well, I'm struggling to get in the door this way. I don't have a lot of business experience. Let me start picking up projects,
Okay.
sort of freelancer projects, just to sort of build out my portfolio and work towards that ideal of the Thailand beach thing.
Yes.
And the work started coming that way. So I couldn't get a
Right.
job, but I could get gigs. So I started doing that, and I ended up getting enough that I could start my own business as a data science consultant.
Okay.
And from there, I ended up working for one of my clients, a company called Pivigo that runs a data science boot camp called Science to Data Science that you've
Right.
probably heard of before.
Yeah. Right. I think Ryan mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Came through our first cohort, I think. Um,
Mm.
so I didn't cross paths with Ryan. I came a couple years after that. But they hired me to build their data science team. And so I sort of started doing data science leadership after only a very relatively short stint of doing hands-on
Mm.
IC work.
Right.
Uh, and that's how I, really got into the field. And I built a team there and moved up through the ranks, and was involved with running the company and going through fundraising and funding rounds and things like that. And since then, I've moved on. And I'm working at Vodafone now,
Vodafone. Yeah.
managing two data science teams, about 12 people each. We sit in within the base marketing functionality of Vodafone. So using data science to try to figure out ways that we can engage existing customers in a more compelling way, hopefully,
Mm.
retain them as customers,
Hmm.
understand them better, prevent them from leaving, and ideally bring in new people.
Right. Right. And I mean, amazing. Is that Vodafone? Is what is the data science capacity overall? Is that the two main teams, or there's literally hundreds of data scientists?
Well, it's a complicated structure at Vodafone. So I work for Vodafone UK, which is obviously the UK version of the company.
Sure.
There's I think 15, 20 different I don't know how many there are different
Sure.
markets around the world.
Yeah.
So, Germany, Greece, and there's India, Australia. I don't know
Yeah.
where they all are.
Sure.
And then there's sitting above that is what's called Vodafone Group, which is sort of a separate entity that
Hmm.
links them all together.
Hmm.
So there are data science capabilities in all of those different
Mm.
organizations,
Hmm.
and some of them cross-pollinate with others. So we work with Vodafone Group data
Hmm.
scientists quite a lot. Um, but within Vodafone UK, we're the big data team.
Okay.
So there are other data scientists working for other teams outside of marketing,
Right.
maybe networks and things like that. But I think, the biggest data science functionality.
Right. So this is,
Um,
yeah, kind of the core data science related to marketing for Vodafone UK.
that's right. But we also farm out use cases to other functionalities. So, like, for
Mm.
example, the networks team doesn't really have their own data science capabilities. So,
Mm.
even though we sit within base marketing, we actually do work for the networks team, which is a
Mm.
separate part of the company.
Right.
So, getting back to your original question, I manage two of the teams. There's actually five squads. We
Right.
call them
Five squads.
squads
Yeah.
within the big data team at the moment. So I manage two-fifths
Right. Right.
of
Right.
the capability.
And are all of these squads are all of these squads cross-functional? As in term, yeah, there's sort of it's not like you've got that you're managing the two who are specializing in data engineering and the other three are data science, or it's more all kind of mixed.
Yeah, it's all mixed. Every squad is a blended mix. So we have data scientists, data engineers,
Hmm.
and quality assurance engineers, as well
Hmm.
as usually we have an analyst and a visualization expert on each squad,
Mm.
and then we
Mm.
have scrum masters, and um,
Right.
some squads have different balance of that, but there's more or less every squad has that those are the components of every squad, and it's actually, to me, I think it's quite neat that you
Mm.
know it. When I came there, I've only been there for 9 months.
Mm.
I came from a small company where we were, the four or five or six of us who were in the data science team were doing everything, and we were just,
Right. Right.
like the saying goes, building the airplane on the runway and just trying to,
Yeah.
you know, tape
So,
everything together as we're going along.
mm.
Here, it's a established team. They've been doing it for a long time, and they really thought about what we need to deliver and to perform well. And it was quite a interesting experience to be dropped into that and saying, okay, here's what it looks like when it's really taken seriously, and there's lots of resource, and we're really committed to having a high performance operation. And um, it's been a wonderful learning experience to see, okay, for me anyway, when it works well, this is what it looks like.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, and I'm excited to dig into that to the extent that we can. I just wanted to jump back though to you were saying like 25 years in biomedical research
Hmm.
with sort of cancer research and so on. So you at the time you were kind of academia was your world originally. Would you say?
Yes and no. Initially, I got into academic research because I just wanted a job. I got out of
Right. Okay.
university. I wanted to bum around literally for a while. It was something I was good at, so I could move across country and get a job in a different city. I moved to Salt Lake City from
Oh
where
yeah.
I originally lived in the East Coast,
Hmm.
and was able to get a job to enable me to move there and have a, sort of a 20-something hedonistic lifestyle
Right.
for a
Right.
while.
Brilliant.
Um, but I also wanted to, not separate, not let my experience stagnate and get stale and not be away from the field in case, I should want to go back into that.
Yeah.
So, for the first 10 years, it was really just a way to pay the bills.
Okay.
And my last stint doing paid work like that was at MIT. I had moved back east and I was working at
Mhm.
MIT for a few years, and
Oh yeah.
um, sort of had a catharsis. Like, all right, now I'm in my 30s. If I was going to do a PhD, I probably should have done it by now. At MIT, PhDs take like 7, 8 years sometimes.
Right.
So it's a huge commitment. And then I had an opportunity to come to London to work at
Mm.
Cancer Research UK.
Hmm.
Uh, I'd wanted to do something different anyway.
Right.
Uh, so I had this just sort of a confluence of reasons to sort of get me to take on the academic part of it a bit more seriously. And so I
Sure.
I applied, found a lab that would have me at Cancer Research UK, and
Right.
moved over here and did my PhD for real.
Right. Right. Right.
Um,
Brilliant.
yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I partly ask because I'm kind of interested in. I mean, I know my father was a biomedical researcher. But I wonder what was your area of specialization? Were you doing a lot of? It was all sort of lab work. I mean, everything involves computers th these days.
Mhm.
But I mean, I assume that there's some degree of overlap between what like in terms of skills. But I'm wondering what were you? Do you think were the main skills that you were developing and maintaining and so on as part of that kind of career in biomedical research?
Yeah. So my work most of the time was very wet lab based,
Wet
hands-on.
lab, yeah.
I was working on uh, model animal models of human disease. So, for example,
Right.
the cancer work, I was working in a a species called a zebrafish, and I
Mm.
was looking at how blood vessels form.
Okay.
So that lab was really focusing on if you have two cells that sit next to each other, how do they talk to each other
Mm.
in a molecular way, and
Wow.
how do those communications give rise to a huge multicellular organism with
Right.
patterns of cells and tissues and things like that.
Right. Right.
So my part was in blood vessel formation and how do the
Mm.
cells that make up blood vessels talk to each other so that they know how to get the right density of vessels and how not to get too many or too few and to get the right amount of oxygen. And
Right.
but as a part of that, we were studying when you work in a model species like a zebrafish, we don't
Mm.
really care about cancer in fish. We
Mm.
care about it because it can tell us about
Sure.
cancer in humans, and that's why
Yeah.
Cancer Research UK supports that kind of work. And so
Mm.
we did a lot of bioinformatics to try to
Yeah.
find, okay, here's a gene we know is important for blood vessel formation in humans.
Right.
What does the fish version of that look like? And can we study that and can we unpick how it works and then infer how the human version might work and maybe, find therapeutic targets in the future?
Right. Right.
So I started getting into a little bit of bioinformatics, which, you start using larger data sets and you start, thinking
Sure.
about things in a zoomed out, scaled up way. And then I had eventually moved on from the blood vessels and I moved to a different lab. This is at King's College
Oh yeah.
in London, working on, again, development in fish, but this time was on muscle development, skeletal muscle.
Okay.
And we used a technique called a microarray analysis. So
Uh,
um, in a developing animal, there's and adults as well, but it's especially important in development. There are proteins that control the expression of other proteins,
right.
right? So it's a gene regulation, we call it.
Mm.
And what you can do, you might say, okay, I've got this protein X, and I'm curious what it controls because we
Yes.
know it's important early in development, but if we take it away, then muscles don't form properly. So
Mm.
if we look and see what expression of downstream genes are changed by removing this gene, that can
Mm.
tell us a bit about how muscles are formed,
Right.
and maybe how we can help with diseases where muscle formation fails.
Mm.
And so a microarray analysis allows you to do that. So you take, two population of fish, one is normal, and another one you take that gene of interest away, and then you look to see what else of all the genes in the fish that exist, 30,000 genes, which ones are turned up and which ones are turned down. And you
Right.
can then
Right.
start to piece together the pathways that
Mm.
control muscle formation.
Mm.
And that was important for me because I started analyzing big data sets, by which I mean
Right.
too big to fit into memory, right? Things that
Right.
you couldn't really do, at least not in Excel. You couldn't open an Excel file with these
No.
because it was just too many rows. And so I started programming with R,
Okay.
the programming language R, and
Yeah.
which is a statistical programming
Indeed.
language. But at the time, a lot of the tools around microarray analysis were using R.
Mm.
So that was sort of my first foray into analyzing large data sets and doing it, more computational work.
Mm.
Um, and then my data science sort of started from there.
Right.
Uh,
Got you.
and my first language was R, and I did most of my early work using R, and then eventually jumped on board Python because that's where most of the field was going.
Indeed, indeed. Oh, it's fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing all of those details. I mean, there are little connections because I mean, in my PhD, I was looking at the neuromuscular junction,
All
and I
right.
wasn't doing any wet lab work, but I was, reading a lot of papers, which is what you do as part of the academia. And yeah, I also, I mean, back at Funding Circle, I was doing a lot of R myself. Yes, so I can see the path there. Oh, it's exciting stuff. Also, Cancer Research UK, they had I don't know if they're still doing it, but a great podcast where they were talking about, on the technology side, all the different things that they do there. Wow, what a really, really interesting path, which then brings you, through the boot camp and the different, and so it sounds like you actually were helping the boot camp, with their operations. Rather, you didn't do the boot camp yourself. You kind of came in and helped them structure their data team, I think was what you were saying before.
Yes. So it's slightly more complicated than that, I guess. Originally, my first experience with the boot camp, I'd wanted to apply for it as a student, but I'd
Mm,
missed the deadline, and they were only doing once a year. And this was in
mm,
the early days. So I started, training myself at home, as I mentioned earlier.
mm,
Um, and then when I was starting to get my freelancing career going, Kim, the CEO of Pivigo, reached out to
mm,
me and said, "Hey, this year for the boot camp, we want to have technical mentors with our teams. We have these
mm,
teams with, 4 or 5 people that work on business cases. But what we're finding is that they could really use the benefit of somebody who is a professional who knows how to
Yeah.
build data science projects and how to work with stakeholders and to
Sure.
navigate that because these are people coming out of PhDs or postdocs who have no idea. Like
Right.
they're completely new to all of it.
Mm.
And so they hired me as a technical mentor, and I would effectively look after four or five or six teams in each
Hmm.
of the programs.
Right.
And I ended up doing that for a handful of times.
Mm.
And in the meantime, as part of the process, they have so the way the program works, students are on teams working on a business case that a business brings to the program.
Mm. Mm.
So they sort of have customers in both directions. They have the students who are enrolling, and they have the businesses who are offering
Sure.
the the projects. And so they needed what they found is that they needed more help in designing those projects. Someone to sit
Mm.
down with a stakeholder and say, okay, what are you trying to accomplish? What are your pains? Where could we find opportunities for data science to make your life better?
Right. Right.
And that was really where my job took me, or my engagement with Pivigo was to have those conversations and to help
Right. Right.
bring those projects to life, at least before the boot camp would start,
Mm.
as well as doing the technical mentoring I mentioned earlier. And that
Yeah.
was, eventually I'd done that so many times as a contractor. Kim was like, "Look, come work for us," and
Right.
this is silly, and that's how I
Yeah.
began
Yeah.
working
No.
for them.
Great. I mean, there is a slight parallel with myself in that, I spent many years in academia, and then I did something similar with a software engineering boot camp, and I
All right.
ended up running that, and we had a similar sort of thing in that we had outside people coming in, but rather than specifically being data science projects, they were just companies who needed stuff done, and there were students working on it, and yeah, so that yeah, that all sounds very familiar
Mm.
from my perspective. And I think it was also, it was sort of running that boot camp that also helped accelerate my transition from being mainly academia focused to being more industry focused. Yeah,
Yeah, as a technical, I mean, as a practitioner, it's a great opportunity, right? Because you
yeah,
learn a little bit about a lot of things.
yeah.
You're involved with, maybe six or seven different projects at the same time. You're not the one with your hands on the keyboard, but
Right.
you're learning about the scientific approach, and
Yeah.
your repertoire of pattern recognition becomes
Mhm.
huge because you've seen so many things in a short amount of time.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then, so, all of that experience that we've been talking about, you're bringing that to bear now in, a big setup with
Mm.
Vodafone. And so, yeah, you've got two teams of data scientists that you're kind of, responsible for. Uh,
Yes.
yeah, and I mean, can you give us just a sort of a flavor of, is it there's sort of constant incoming demands from C-suite or VPs saying we need this, we need that, and you've got to sort of like, map that out to which team is working on it, or what does the average day or week kind of look like for you at Vodafone with those teams?
Yeah, it's a good question. They're very different, my two teams.
Okay.
So the one team that uh, call them Delta, we give them Greek letters, is very transactional, and so they work very closely with stakeholders within the base marketing uh, part of the company.
Uh-huh.
So we have somebody who's working with the mobile retention squad, somebody else working with the home broadband retention squad,
Mm-hmm.
somebody else with
Mm-hmm.
cross-sell, et cetera. So that's very it's a very close touch to the stakeholders. So we um, talk to them, find out what their priorities are, put it into
Mm-hmm.
our roadmap, and are really working with them to build solutions that match really specific, predefined goals and objectives,
Oh yeah.
all aligned towards base marketing. So that's the one team.
Mm-hmm.
The other team is almost diametrically opposed.
Uh-huh.
This is called the beta team, and there it's much more exploratory. So we're exploring what we can do with more modern technologies and more aspirational capabilities that up until recently didn't even have a dedicated stakeholder.
Right.
Um, so, for example, one of the things we're working on is to use large language models and generative AI to
Mm-hmm.
make sense of call transcripts and web chat
Right.
transcripts. So at
Interesting.
Vodafone, we have, you can get online and you can chat with the bot, or you can ring up and talk to an agent. And
Mm-hmm.
um, with all that together, we have about 80, maybe 60 to 80 conversations per day coming through our systems.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that's a huge treasure trove of useful information that tells us,
Right.
what are our customers experiencing? What are they going through? What are they feeling?
Right.
You know, it's a great opportunity for us to learn. and we want to learn. We care about that.
Yeah,
It's one of
yeah,
our goals is to ensure that we're providing a good customer experience, and it also gives us diagnostic information, like find out if our network isn't doing great in certain regions,
yeah,
or
yeah.
our customer support is not up where it should be.
Right.
And so we're looking at ways that we can process that huge amount of information in a
Mm,
structured way, and
amazing.
then start to derive actionable insights from that. And the actionable is the real tricky part there. Like, we can learn
Right.
things, but not everything can be is actionable. So
Sure.
that second squad, the beta squad, is all about developing that technology, and now we've actually started applying it to real uh, to use cases within the organization that are outside of base marketing,
Mm.
um, that we think can help to deliver against these priorities, like improving customer service, for example.
Brilliant, brilliant. Yeah. Oh, well, fascinating. And just partly for my benefit to reflect some of the things you were saying back to make sure that I've understood. Yeah. So there's one team which is perhaps doing in a more traditional role, and so an example of that might be that a big campaign has gone out and they want to know, oh, how has this campaign impacted our new customer sign up or retention or what have you, and there's just sort of like those sort of things going on, which is stuff that's been done time and time before, and just the data needs to be coming in, and the people who are making these decisions about how effective was this campaign or not, or and so on, what should we be doing, that's they need like data that tells them whether it's working or not. Would that be a kind of, I mean, I'm hopelessly naive here perhaps about what kind of things go on, is that sort of thing?
It's in the right direction.
Yeah,
However, what you're describing is, if I understand correctly, is more the analysis of how a campaign has done. And
yeah,
we have actually a separate functionality for that. We have an analytics team that does that.
okay,
So my team is more upstream of that. So, okay, we want to send out a campaign. We might have a churn model that can go through and say, okay, for every customer,
uh
what's their churn propensity? How
right,
vulnerable are we to losing this person?
got
And
you,
should we, change our messaging
got you,
to to understand that person better, and to try to save them,
right,
or where are you know I don't know, opportunities for if there's a cross-sell opportunity, like for example, we might say, okay, we really want to try to sell more home broadband contracts to
right,
our mobile customers, but if we know here's a pocket of mobile customers who are having a bad experience with us,
yes,
and they're not happy and they're high churn risk, then maybe we want to, not go tell them how wonderful the network is, but actually take a different approach and cater
yeah,
the messaging slightly differently. So my team is working on that insight, trying to figure out
yeah,
on a customer by customer basis, things we care about, like churn propensity, or,
got you.
stuff like that. And those are all dimensions that feed into the campaign machinery.
Right, right. No, and that makes perfect sense. And yeah, I mean, I can relate that to my own. Back when I was running a charity, we were looking at trying to like, yeah, who are people who can like we can upsell to and so on. Yes, yes. No, that makes perfect sense. But then yeah, and then there's the exploratory stuff with all of this, the data that's coming through. I mean, the conversation, you say 60 to 80 conversations a day. Is that all text or voice? Um,
So 60, 80,000, just to
Oh,
make
I'm
sure we're
sorry.
clear.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
I missed the like several orders of magnitude there. Right.
Yes.
Wow. No,
Yes.
that's a lot. And
It's a huge
that's
volume. Yeah.
yeah, and that's all text or a mixture of text and voice.
So what we get is all text, but it's a
Right.
mixture of text and voice originally, and uh, it gets transcribed and
Right.
processed and before it comes to us.
Wow. Wow. That is a lot of data. And well, that then it
Yeah.
segues naturally into our second question, which is, how is AI affecting both your life and work? And clearly, that second team, is using the latest AI.
Mm.
I'm interested to hear, anything you can share about what you're doing there, but also about how AI is just affecting, you know, how you run your own life day to day, either in a work or personal aspect.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess there's sort of two answers to that question.
Sure.
In terms of the work I'm doing and the
Mm,
research we're doing, let's call it research. We're practitioners of AI, using models and applying them for,
right.
trying to get insights and make decisions. But we also use AI as a tool just in
Hmm.
our day-to-day work at Vodafone.
Oh yeah.
We're embedded in a Microsoft system, and so we have Copilot on everything. And
Right.
um, it's been a push from the company to put that technology in everybody's hands. And it's only in the last few months that they've really gotten it up and running, and they've integrated into
Mm,
our systems. We have to be very careful
okay.
about integrating into our
Sure.
systems because we have to. we're a regulated industry and we've got to be, very careful about customer
Sure.
data and stuff like that. But
Yep.
now that we're there, um, we have Copilot integrated across everything. So I can open up Copilot on my, work account and I can say, oh, summarize all the slide decks relating to, X, Y, and Z use cases that we've done over
Right.
the past 3 years. And it can give me a 5 point bullet list of what all the work is we've done. And it
Right.
picks it up across, across SharePoint and, all the different places where you have information
Yep.
kept. And it does an amazing job of, of finding all that information.
Right.
Which, I mean, theoretically it makes sense, but it's sort of amazing to see it that it actually works as well as it
Right.
does.
Right.
So for me, I think it's a huge time saver. It's great. And th- I'm a little bit of this is going to sound strange, but I don't really like technology a lot of
Okay.
times.
Okay.
And
That does sound strange, but yeah, no,
yeah,
go
it's,
on.
it's paradoxical. I mean, uh, it's a tool. It's something that can help me get through my life easier and faster and to
Sure.
do tedious jobs quicker. And that's to me where the value is. And, other people surely feel differently, but um, that's what I'm happiest with it is like, all right, you've made it easier for me to put a report together or to understand this complicated thing that's got about a million different documents associated with it. And you've
Mm.
condensed it into 10 bullet points. And now I understand it, at least in broad strokes.
Mm.
So even though that's not, super exciting, cutting edge research into AI, to me, it's incredibly valuable. And I think, I'd love to see the numbers on how much time that saves across an organization like Vodafone, where
Mm.
the leadership has really made a decision that we're going to get everybody up and running on it, that we're
Right.
going to press it, we're going to push it, and we're going to put it in everybody's hands, and we're going to really buy into it.
Mm.
Um, and I'm really impressed with it so far, I have to say.
Right, right. And yeah, when we're talking about Copilot here as it applies to the sort of Microsoft suite of Word,
Correct.
PowerPoint, and so on, because it
Yes.
also, I mean, we have in my organization Copilot for in VS Code for coding,
Yep.
which is another thing.
Yes.
Again, yeah, I mean, I mean, the abilities of the large language models does seem extraordinary. Is there any sense that you have where you feel like that it's got a potential to lead you astray. I mean, what I certainly find with the coding assist tools is that um, if you give them, that they will make mistakes.
Hmm.
If you give them too much to do, then ask them to bite off more than they can realistically chew, you can get yourself into a sticky situation. And I think at the moment there's a very careful balance. You've got to be using the AI code assisting tools very carefully if you want to get the benefit from them. But what I'm hearing you say is from the sort of document assist tools, you're feeling it's kind of like it's pretty much across the board great. Have you encountered any situation where you saw a summary and you're like, that seems a bit odd, and you dug down and found actually it's misinterpreted an underlying document? Is there any mechanism that you've got to check that the time that it seems to be saving you, it isn't missing important insights or, representing things incorrectly?
Yeah, it's absolutely critical. Um, One thing that I like about it, and that we always are told, this is
Yeah,
important, you do this, and I think it's good advice, is that it not only gives you the answer, but it also gives you citations for where it got the
right,
answers from.
right.
It's like it will say like, here's what I've discovered about X, Y, and Z, and here's the place where I found it, and you can go click on that and look at the original slide deck
Yeah,
or document.
right.
Uh, so I always, when I do it, if it, unless it's just, for me to get my head together 5 minutes before a meeting, I just need to know something. If it's anything that I have to present, like I'm
Yeah.
putting a presentation together, or I need to rely on that knowledge in a more formal way, I always make sure I go back and look and say, okay, did it make sense? Did it understand that correctly? And I would say usually the answer is yes, not always.
Okay.
Um,
So there are occasions where you feel, oh, it's maybe, not quite accurately summarized something.
yeah, and it's hard to know because sometimes it's not fair to criticize the technology for some of the mistakes because it could be that, you know, the resources the resources it's finding were accurate 2 years ago, but
Mm,
now this has changed, and
okay.
so it's not giving an updated view of it because it just
Right.
doesn't hasn't found, or there's a flood of information in the old from 2 years ago that's overrepresented,
Mm,
and the more
mm,
recent things are less present, and therefore not coming up as much.
yeah.
I haven't looked at it an objective way to sort of score and see, okay,
No,
how often
sure.
is the mistakes, for a legitimate reason versus it just got it wrong.
But yeah, your subjective sense is that it is helping, and but yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. It's cool. I mean, I don't use the Copilot so much on the document side, and but it's interesting to hear that there are those caveats that you
Mm,
mentioned there. I think that's really useful for the listeners, and I'm sure more and more people are starting to use these kind of tools, and those sort of rules of thumb that you're mentioning there are very handy for making sure it's really helping. Um, but yeah, so I mean, I want to talk more about AI. I think we can leave that to just like later on. I was going to segue into your approach to leadership. You're a member of the Rebel AI community where we're all looking at data science leadership and talking about how most effectively to do that. You're in a leadership. You as a you're not touching the things directly. You're guiding these two teams. How do you be the most effective leader for these teams? And does AI come into that, or is it all about the people skills?
Um, I I think I guess it's more people skills than anything else,
Oh yeah.
at least in my role. Um, and I would also say there's a lot of uh, product development or product management skills that are part of my
Oh
role.
yeah.
Um, and maybe technical or AI skills as a third place.
Hmm.
The third most important thing.
Hmm.
People are tricky. Naturally, they're unpredictable, and it's everyone's got a different personality, and their needs are different. And my job as a manager or as a leader of a team is to try to create an environment where the people can be at their best and
Right.
align to good outcomes for the company
Hmm.
and good outcomes for our customers. So, everything I think I have to view everything in terms of leadership through that lens.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know, so here's, one person and they need something different than somebody else. And
Hmm.
it one of the bigger challenges for me is to pay attention to that enough because,
Okay.
one, I've got 25 people that I'm looking after, so it's easy to
Yeah.
get distracted. And two, that there's a lot of other things I'm doing besides looking after people.
Right.
And it's often, sadly, the my paying attention to the people sometimes gets set to the side because I've got other things that are on fire
Mm.
to solve,
Mm.
this thing that's critical and it's got to be done tomorrow. And
Sure. Sure.
other things just sort of come in and push their way around, and it's often the interactions of people um that suffer as a result. Um, but I think it's also when things go well, like if when I'm
Mm.
managing a team well,
Right.
and my one of my old bosses used to say it's sort of like if you're a captain on a ship, right?
Hmm.
Your job is to look out and make sure we're going in the right direction and
Hmm.
make sure that the people who are pulling on the sails are doing the right job and turning the right
Right.
wheels and all that. But when you're doing it well, you have a very light touch
Right.
and they're doing their jobs well. And it's only occasionally you need to go in there and course correct.
Right.
So, if you extend that analogy to what I said a few minutes ago, when it goes well, the team are supporting themselves. And I've got,
Right.
more senior people who are looking after the more junior people and
Hmm.
helping them
Hmm.
become unstuck or to overcome whatever blockers they're having. And I have to say that I'm very lucky that both of my teams, the people are excellent. They're
Right.
fantastically skilled. They're very clever. They're super helpful.
Mm.
Um, and I'm not sure. I've like I said, I've been there not a very long time, so I haven't been a part of the hiring process for many of those
Right.
people.
Mm.
And maybe that attests to the process at Vodafone.
Right.
Uh, so I gave you. I said a lot of words. I'm not sure I answered your question. I think I've drifted off topic a little bit.
Well, no, no. I mean, I think it. I'm fascinated. It. I think it definitely answers the question. I mean, I think you've told us a bit about your philosophy towards leadership. I mean, I love that idea of the light touch of the team supporting themselves. Yeah, and yes, it's a really interesting question. I think about the hiring process and getting the right people in. It is something. But certainly my sense is that trying to get, if you can compose the team of the right people, that is half or even more of the battle. That
Mm,
said, actually being able to, go have a process that brings through the right people, I think is really tricky, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard to hire. It takes
yeah,
a lot of effort, and it's if uh, I think without a doubt, if you cut corners and try to not do it thoroughly, you're going to probably be sorry eventually.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Indeed
Um,
so, indeed
and
so.
also, as being an applicant, I can say, I've probably been through close to 100 interviews. A
Right.
lot of them are just not done very well. Like, I
No,
sit down with the interviewers, and often I don't think they know what why we're there, what they're looking for.
no,
And it's a real investment, and I think
yeah,
it makes sense. As a manager, you really need to be prepared to invest yourself in that properly and to
about
do a
right.
good job and make sure that you're clear with yourself and people that are helping you what you're looking for, what you're trying to see, what you're trying to get out of an interview.
Yeah.
What do I want to learn about this person? Um, yeah.
Yeah, no. Well, I think it's really interesting. I mean, maybe we can have you back on in a year after you've seen more of the process, and we can talk
Mm,
about those kinds of things. But I think there's interesting. We can sort of summarize that of saying, one of the secrets of leadership is finding the right people to lead.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
brilliant.
But also culture is hugely important. Like,
Sure.
it, toxic people are poisonous, for lack of
Yeah,
a better
yeah.
term, and
No, and it can.
it's really important to make sure you prevent that.
Yeah, brilliant. But so yeah, moving on.
Mm.
Time waits for no man, they say, or of any gender. Anyway, do you have an exciting tech hack? I mean, you're excited about using Copilot. What I mean, and you say you like technology as a tool. Is there any particular tech that you'd like to share with the listeners that you're excited about at the moment?
Um, I mean, the one that comes to mind is what we've already
Yeah.
discussed, I think, the most, because it makes my life a lot easier.
Right.
And ultimately that's, to me, that's why it's there.
Yeah.
Um, and when I do coding, I do use Copilot for that as well.
Okay.
The GitHub, is it GitHub? No. Yeah,
I
yeah,
think that they're involved.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just helps me learn, I guess, 'cause I'm
Right.
not a great coder. Um, so yeah, I think it's pretty unsatisfying to answer your question, I guess.
Oh, well,
But
no, not at all. I mean, yeah, I mean, I've kind of, if I was a more sophisticated podcast host, I think you saw the questions in advance, and you're already peppering, the conversation with the answers, and
mm,
yeah, I just sort of, you know, I think previously I've thought, oh, people who are more in a managerial role, maybe I shouldn't be asking them about their exciting tech hack, but I think everybody has their things that they're working on, and I wanted to make sure that there was an opportunity for you to mention something else if there was another thing again. But well, maybe let's slide that into, how you see the future of AI. I mean, like, I guess, with the caveats, the new AI is helping you out on a coding front, on an organizational in your role as a leader. Um, how do you see it evolving? And I mean, one in terms of helping you, and two, I guess in terms of helping Vodafone and others, manage this huge amount of data that's coming through that was previously very difficult to analyze, wasn't it? You had all of this natural language stuff, and it was very, very slow to kind of like you had to pay humans to kind of go through it and pick out, oh, this is this, and that other, or there were like, models that would do sentiment analysis, but then how much could you trust them and so on. Yeah. How are you seeing it all evolving from your perspective?
yeah, I mean, naturally it's evolving very fast. I'm not so great at saying what's the direction of travel right now. I can see what people are talking about. Agentic AI is,
Mm,
probably part of every conversation when you're
indeed.
talking about the future of AI. Um, I think assistants that are, I don't know. I have this image of, like, Star Trek: The Next Generation, the show that was
Mm,
on in the 90s, and they had that character Commander Data.
they did. One of my
You know,
favorites.
yeah, and he was just this almost limitless resource, this fountain, this
Right.
assistant with knowledge, and can just bring knowledge to the front,
Yep.
instantaneously. And I wasn't that um, fanatical about the show, but I don't think I don't think the character was ever really there making decisions and driving things. He was more giving information that
Mm,
Picard used to make his decisions, and
right. Right.
presenting things in a logical way, like, oh, a logic would say
Mm,
it's this,
mm,
this, and this, and even though we're
hmm.
clouded by other extraneous factors,
Yes.
here's what the information is. So I think, you know, for me, what I see is that, the amount of knowledge. in the world, at
Yeah.
Vodafone, in my life, is just growing exponentially, and there's no
Yes.
way to keep track of it all. So
Hmm.
having, you know, adapting to a way where we have that assistant to
Mm.
retain that knowledge and make it accessible,
Hmm.
and to take away the friction of access of getting to that
Yep.
knowledge. And
Yep.
it used to be, one of the hardest problems of doing research was asking the right question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I want to find a book that tells me about
Yeah.
this process. Well, I don't even know what I'm looking for. I don't know what to ask of the
Yeah.
card catalog in the library.
Right. Right.
To take that friction away, makes it more accessible, and
Mm.
um, brings it to life more. And so, I think it'll be more in that direction is what I see, that it just,
Yeah.
it's there next to you more. And even like, walking down the street and you see, some graffiti on the side of
Mm.
a wall, like, oh, there's, somebody drawn something. Here's a picture of it. Can you tell me what that's referring
Right.
to? Is that a,
Right. Right.
reference to something I should know about just because I'm curious about it?
Sure.
And being able to take that unstructured information and give you something meaningful back.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a remarkable leap that's happened there, and no, a great analogy with of course commander data. And I think you're right. Certainly early on, he was more providing the logic. I think what's actually interesting about the arc through the television series and then also the films is that um, he lacked emotional intelligence, and part of the character arc was him trying to gain that emotional intelligence as time went on, and he was put in decision-making situations, and how he failed or succeeded, and actually how he failed and succeeded with people management and so on. But yeah, well, and agentic is being mentioned. We've been talking about in the Rebel AI community. In passing, I mean, two case studies have just been brought to my attention. How much to believe, I'm not sure. There's one in the insurance industry where a startup is saying that they have, effectively an agent team that's taking customer inquiries coming through Slack and kind of swarming on things and producing, I mean, I don't understand the insurance industry so well, but sort of responding to customer inquiries, I guess, about their premiums or this, that, and the other, and doing a fantastic job, allegedly. But I think also quite high profile is Klarna have just, they had downsized in terms of people and replaced a lot of that function, that sort of similar function, with agents. And a drop in quality has meant that they're now rehiring people. So there's
Mhm.
clearly a lot going on. It feels to me like there must be huge potential for these swarms of autonomous agents to deliver value, but it's not a panacea, right? You can't just sort of throw in some agent solution. But yeah, I'm still, for me, like the detailed specifics of how certain agent systems work and so on seems to be lacking at the moment. There's a lot of talk about, oh yes, everybody should be using agents,
Mm.
but
Yeah,
that really
yeah.
feels like a hype cycle. I don't know. I mean, is Vodafone excited about using agents? Are you excited about using agents?
I am excited about it. Um, I think my natural tendency is to tread, be curious but tread cautiously.
Yeah, sure.
Um, and at the moment, we've got more we've got more to do than we can possibly manage. So,
Right.
while it's nice to think about, things technology that we could adopt in the future, and we should be thinking about that, especially as
Mm,
leaders. Um, it's also important to focus on, delivering real value from the things we
mm,
do have.
right.
And when I mentioned earlier that my what I've learned about product development
Mm,
is what I just said is from that, that we have to focus on value, and
right.
where we're, you know not just having uh, projects that are scientifically interesting
Hmm.
stimulating, but also that are producing real outcomes for the company that are, again, actionable, and that we can ideally measure the value
Yeah,
from.
absolutely.
And that measurement is key, and that's tricky because it's sometimes hard to measure what the value of a model is.
Sure.
Um, but you know, it's perfectly reasonable for people, my boss's boss, to say, okay, well, we're funding this team.
Hmm.
What are we getting from it?
Right.
Why
Absolutely.
are we putting all this money into a big
Sure.
data team?
Yeah.
And it's our responsibility to be able to justify it.
Yeah.
And so those are the things that are more front and center in my mind, I guess.
Yeah, no, well, I think sensibly so. Yeah, I mean, and I mean, you were saying already, you know, it's difficult to predict the future, but we're in a podcast and it's fun.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? I mean, well, I mean, if we go back to this 60 to 80,000 conversations,
Hmm.
these are all at the moment pretty much all conversations between humans and humans. Is that right? It's
It's a mix of humans and humans from the call center and humans and bots.
right. And so there's an extent to which already that those bots can be seen as, I mean, you know, bots can refer to, like a very, I mean, most people I think have a frustrating, difficult experience with these sort of the things of your bank and your cell phone company that just sort of like have a certain number of options. The, it seems like there's a potential opportunity there for, like bots that are based on LLMs rather than just on some decision tree seems like they could be far more effective. I mean, can you imagine a situation, in a couple of years where those bots have all been upgraded and they're the for the call center workers, there's less demand for their services, or does that seem unlikely to you? Do you think the AI technology will continue just to be a tool that helps support the individual human users?
Uh, Sorry, I think I just froze there for a second.
No problem.
Um, yeah, I think you're right. I think the if we can get bots to do better jobs, then it's easier to scale, and
Right.
uh, humans are expensive and they're um, imprecise.
Hmm.
Um, However, I don't think we're ever going to eradicate the utility of having humans call
Mm.
centers. Um, there are nuances to
Right.
individual user cases that
Yeah.
um, are at the moment too tricky and for a
Yeah.
bot to handle, and that'll probably improve over time. Will
Mm.
we ever get to the point where that a bot can always do it as well as a human? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know.
Mm.
But I think also a lot of people like to talk to people, and they
Indeed so.
feel that the human touch just goes a long way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not only because it makes them feel more heard,
Mm.
um, but I think it also shows that we value that emotion, that's
Right.
important to us as a
Yeah. Yeah.
company,
Yeah.
and we want to make sure that you know we're providing for that.
Yeah.
So I don't think we would ever get to a point where we take it away entirely.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, great point. Well, fantastic. It slides us, I think, nicely into our last question. What does it all mean, this life,
Mhm.
the universe, and everything? Do you have any take on, what's going on?
Well, like I said earlier, I mean, for me, this is all about making my life better,
Oh, yeah.
letting me sleep better at night, and taking away pain and giving me gain in product speak. I like to ride bicycles, so things that give me more time to get outside of my bike or watch ice hockey games on TV, uh, and spend time with my kids, of course, and just
Right.
do things that I care about.
Okay. Yeah. Brilliant.
That's the benefit for me.
Right,
Um,
right. And so yeah, I guess what you're saying there is that the effort at work, to deliver value, all of these things, that's all in cause of it's for the purpose of creating time for those things that you love and enjoy and your passions in life. Is that right?
yeah, yeah, exactly. And for me, the research is never a passion. Even as a
Interesting.
cancer researcher, like I
Mm,
enjoyed it. I found it interesting. I
okay.
didn't begrudge having to work long hours because
Mm,
there was stimulation to it. But some people in academia live to be in the lab. They live to do their
right.
research. That's just what gets them out of bed in the morning. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm envious of that, but I'm not one of those people.
Interesting.
I'd rather play a game with my daughter or go out my bike or enjoy
Yeah.
my life that's with the devices turned off and away from a lab.
Well,
So,
that sounds very healthy. That sounds very.
well, it's yeah, that's the way I'm wired.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can't help but sort of connect it to myself in that I become quite obsessed with technical problems, and I really look forward to when I've got at the weekend when I sort of force myself away
Hmm.
from the computer, then I'm like still like, oh yeah, I'm going to do work on that thing next week. So I kind of get. I mean,
Yeah.
I love going for bike rides myself, but I tend to have a machine learning podcast playing as I'm cycling because I'm desperately multitasking. As I think we talked
Yeah.
about on one of those. We're always trying to get more done. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I,
it's
I would
cool.
I would add one thing to that though, which is that, I think for me, coding more than almost anything else, it can be therapeutic.
Oh really?
There's a thing called program called the Advent of Code that comes out in December every year,
Yeah,
or
yeah, I know the one.
right,
Yeah,
so these little coding challenges, and I there are few activities in my life where I can get so focused and just so immersed in what I'm doing
right.
that I look up and all of a sudden 2 hours have gone by and I'm still
Yeah.
and I'm just this singularity of purpose.
Yes.
There aren't many things in my life that can do that to me. And I think there's a therapeutic value to that, and it's fun. I have to say
Yeah.
this.
Oh,
It's enjoyable.
Absolutely, yes, yes. It is. It is that state of flow that one can get into.
Yeah,
Yes, in in
yeah,
in in moderation. Yeah,
yes,
one can burn out on that as well. Brilliant.
yes.
Well, John, it's been an amazing conversation. Thanks so much for making the time.
Thank you.
Is there if people want to find out more about you, is there anything you'd like to promote to the listeners?
I don't have much of an online presence, but I'm on LinkedIn, so I'd love to hear from people. If you hear this and you want to connect, please reach out. If you do, please send me a note saying that you heard me on the podcast because I'm not always paying attention to who's getting in touch. Um,
Brilliant. Yeah, well, we'll get your LinkedIn link in the notes. And well, thanks everyone for listening. That wraps up this episode of AI Leadership. If you'd like to be on the podcast or join the Rebel AI community from which it all started, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, Sam Joseph. My email address is sam@neurogrid.com. That'll also be in the show notes. We'll see everyone, or we'll hear everybody. We'll be in each other's earpieces again soon. And I just want to say, final wrap up with big thanks to Jon Leslie for being on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me.